I was inspired by this puzzle for it being very easy and at the same time also very difficult. So I thought if there's any way I can put it into my game. Turns out there is. Adding up to this idea, I was able to give it a new look and create that in Unity. Hello everybody, this is Game Factory. Welcome to the channel. This video is about, like I said, unveiling of my project where I made this 2D puzzle in Unity from scratch. Before unfolding how I achieved this, I would like to explain you about the puzzle and show you a short gameplay footage of final result. Also keep in mind that since this is a puzzle, I would not like to reveal its solution. The plan is to export this game as a completed whole level and story and have you guys play it by yourself. First of all, let me explain you the puzzle. It works like this. So you're on a side of a river with a tiger, goat and grass. Now your goal is to take all of them to the other side of the river. But you can only take one at a time. Now here's the catch. If you leave goat with grass, then goat will eat the grass. And if you leave tiger with goat, then the tiger will eat the goat. So you have to figure out a way by which you can take all of them to the other side of the river, one by one. This basically is the puzzle that you're going to be solving. The job is to take the thing and convert into a new idea. I called the puzzle itself as a food chain because the riddle itself contains the structure of food chain. I thought this was a hell of a good name. I converted those animals and grass to slidable pillars. That means the box that you can push or pull, and then replaced the river with a concrete bridge. Your objective is to take those 3 statues to the other side. Rules being you can't leave any object at middle or on the bridge. So after shifting all those pillars, you will place them over the buttons and open the door to proceed the level. Here are the clips of the game. Now let me describe you about how I managed to achieve this gameplay and explain the algorithm that is running behind the scene. But before that, if you liked what you're seeing, then please support me to create more of this content by pressing the like and subscribe button and turning on the notification for new interesting videos. Let's get back to the video. I will be going through all the process step by step. The first one always being planning. Before creating anything, of course, a strong plan would ensure a better result. I sketched some rough ideas on papers about how I should take these river and animal things to a playable game in Unity. Among many ideas, I took out the current concept because I wanted to keep it unique and I wanted to fit with the game theme. We'll be explaining all the concepts later, but altogether the plan was to add a building and inside that some good looking interior which illustrate calm environment. And 3 pillars, that means the box that you can push, with the respective statues at top. Also 3 buttons to unlock the door. Finally composite everything to an absolute piece. Place it on terrain and dissolve it with the story of game. The first thing I went for was to design the level itself. The idea was to create a calm environment where a player can use his whole brain power to solve the problem without getting distracted by any other elements. So I started modeling the building's interior where I can do play testing. Something about level design. It is a part of game which works under the game design and its mechanics to build up players' experience, emotions, interaction and engagement within the game. When you are designing a level, you should also think being a normal player who don't know anything about the space you are creating. Crafting the experience for the player is a heavy part of the development process which needs a heavy load of work. You also need to think from the psychological perspective of how we can deploy the idea of that design or how to indirectly throw information or tell a story about the environment or situation of game. I'm going to talk more on level design in the next video, where I will be explaining how I created level from upcoming game, but for now, let's continue with the information of development side. I used Blender 3D to model all this stuff. First, I started with the blocking process, where I place simple cubes to play on, from which I can make a rough guess of how the game is going to feel or look. And it also helps with the measurement of areas and size of room. This process is often called gray boxing because we usually place box objects in the scene to lay out the basis of level. This is also a very crucial part of level designing. I completed modeling some big chunk of interior. Second, I unwrapped the model and sent it to Substance Painter for adding texture. To mention here, I didn't model the whole thing at once, but the process was separated to different parts. I completed the big parts of interior like the walls and bridge. I textured them, roughly finished the piece, and moved to the other parts like balcony, doors, windows, etc. After completing the interior, I moved to exterior of the building. About modeling this big piece of scene, it deserves a different topic. I may need a whole video to explain the things here, but the main problems and solutions I encountered were with the size of the room and the way you should be unwrapping huge objects and texture them. Even the 8K texture was not enough to texture the room in high quality. I'm using 2K texture to somewhat make it look high quality, but still lacks many details. So in this case, I want you to learn about trim textures, where you can overlap UVs to create a good looking model. Trim textures are also known as trim sheets, which consist of multiple mini textures similar to a tile set, which are seamless. We can actually build a whole scene using a single trim sheet when used in a clever manner, like I previously did for my 3D castle model of Sabrigog. I could have detailed the scene with lots of other things, like with some ivy or plants that grows inside the hall, or added some clothes and cotton physics or some destructions within the building, which could have improved the visuals, but due to the time limitations and lots of other creation process being there, creating content for YouTube here and there, I feel so bad for not being able to get deep into detailing the piece. But still, I'm quite good with this thing. Let's come back to modeling, but this time the pillars. Before creating a final model, I started with a simple cube for playtesting and to have basic function running. I will not explain too much about this modeling process, but the rough idea was to create decent looking pillars that suits the hall. Now we need some animation for the character to act upon these pillars. Since my character uses generic rig, I can't use an animation from online, so I created my own in Blender. But this time I used the walk animation that I already had. Created 2 points at the position where our hands would be, and add a constraint to the hand bone that copies the location and rotation of empties. After tweaking the curves in the graph editor, I quickly got the animation that I was looking for. Now the only thing was to bake the animation and remove the constraints. But also after doing this, I have to fix lots of poses and postures that were misbehaving in the animation. This was the trick that I used to create object posing animation for my character. The algorithm of game simply works like this. If we press a grab button, for example G, then our character throws a ray to the forward direction. If it gets any object with layer that is pushable object, then the character will shift its location and rotation to fit the animation with the object. Now as soon as that happens, the object will be following an abstract point in front of character to create an illusion of it being pushed and pulled. That would simply give us the object pushing mechanics. Now the part of making it collide with the environment, I used a simple trick to save hours of work. I increased the size of character controller and set its center point at the middle of object and character. This gave me a sweet result which was worth for the time I put. To make it realize it was on ground, I added a raycast to check if the object is on ground or not when it is being operated. If it finds that there is no ground, then it will put the rigid body in action and the player will detach from the object pushing function, and that creates object falling effect. And now if the player is not on ground, then also our object pushing function is interrupted. For the part of sound effect of object pushing, I checked if our player is moving or not by getting the velocity of character controller and said if its X or Z coordinates are greater or less than given value, that means the guy is moving. Play the audio clip of object being dragged. Following up all these steps and having a final composite, I was able to create this function in very short amount of time. I had created a button model and textured it from Substance Painter. I brought that to Unity without any animations, and I created them in Unity. A box collider checks for any valid object, the pillars. When the pillar object is over the button, it plays the press animation and also plays and click audio. If all 3 buttons are loaded with pillars, that means the door opens. If we failed the puzzle, then I wanted something to happen to the pillars. So I go to Blender, used cell fracture and converted them into pieces. There were issues while converting the object into pieces. The fix that worked for me was to separate the pieces to individual objects and by filling any object hole. By doing that, I was able to achieve the final destroyed piece. As soon as I completed that, I transported them into Unity and added colliders. The best part of this process was I didn't have to write any script for adding the force to any of the piece when getting destroyed. Due to the colliders being interconnected, I suppose, when I enabled the object, it automatically blasted to be released from the collision. I just had to write a script that swiped the objects when it was supposed to get destroyed, and then play a simple explosion audio. Finally, I was aiming for a calm scene, but at the same time it should match the kind of dark vibe of game. So I thought of adding an ambience audio that is more satisfying and can play throughout the whole level. Like most people find the sound of rain, ocean, forest, rivers to be satisfying, and likewise the wind or any other. But in our case, we were inside a hole and the chosen weather for a game may not be rainy, so I thought it would be fire. And then I choose lava underneath the bridge. To make lava, I added a plain object and gave it a lava texture. Added an audio source and created a boiling effect. Now for the feel of heat, I added a plain object over the lava and gave it a heat map shader that I created by looking at a tutorial video on YouTube. Instead of making the distortion flow upward by having a particle system, I thought this process may save me some memory and also it looks good enough for the level. Also added an area light that points upward to bake the light of lava on our map. I baked the whole scene by playing with the baking settings and got a decent setting for the scene. And also adding up, I also figured out a way to make these weapons look good. So I took them to Substance Painter and then started building textures. I made a quick design of leaf on the blades, just rough sketches of leaves, and then I made 2 separate emission maps that indicates fire. I took that back to Unity. By creating a shader in Unity for this weapon, I was able to generate this effect of burning and fading the burn with these 2 emissions working separately. Moving on to the lighting and rendering the scene, I added 2 main lights that lit the side of the building, point lights to individual hanging torches, and area light for the lava. After lots of tweaking of values, I figured out the working light setup for the scene. By the way, I think this can be even better. Added a reflection probe inside the scene and filled the scene with light probes at the point where there is a certain change in lighting. Basically, we have 2 background audios in this level, one being the music that plays with the cutscene when we enter the hall and the other being the lava ambience. The music stops playing after a few seconds and then you're left with the cold environment with warm lava ambience. Finally, after completing all these steps, we are done with gameplay. Now I thought of making the entry more cinematic. So I added a cutscene with 2 bars that falls in when a cutscene starts. For this, I created a whole new cinematic camera managing system that can work with any other cutscene that I play in the scene. Also for this, I created a music controller system that helps to handle the background music, transition between 2 musics, or fade in and out any audio. So guys, this is the process, this is the game, and still there are lots of other things to do. That is about adding a tutorial and UI elements to introduce button that grabs object and many more. I was thinking about adding hint for the puzzle with a new idea. For example, if you are confused, then you can go to a statue which is inside that room, statue of another god, to whom you should pray in order to expect a path or whatsoever. These are all coming up in my next update. Still, I'm working on this project to complete the whole level, that is with enemies and all these actions bound to a story. If you want to get any updates, or if you're interested to see me making these types of content, then please support me by subscribing this channel. And if you appreciate my effort, learned anything from this video, then hit the like button. Also enable the bell icon to get notified about any new videos. Thanks for watching, goodbye, take care, and see you in the next video.